Hey, welcome back. We're here for week 2. We'll start with the module on what is public administration. So this module covers what is PA, public versus private, policy execution versus policy making, administrative responsibility, accountability, and then we'll look at this in terms of theory and the practice of public administration. So what is public administration? It's the study of how public organizations function and how they're managed. So we think of public organizations as bureaucracies. These are formal, rational systems with administrative authority, and they're built to execute public programs. Civil servants operate within bureaucracies or our public organizations. Examples of these are city managers, city manager's office, a school district with teachers and principals, public health agencies, federal agencies, public works departments. Public versus private is one of the classic dichotomies within public administration. At the in the public environment, public administration implements public policy in the public interest. This involves political conflict and requires careful management. And like I said in a previous lecture, we're operating within a fishbowl. So there's a lot of public scrutiny and a number of different types of accountability. And that is often because the public wants what they pay for, the taxpayer money and public authority. It's not just about what we do, but it's about how we do it. The public scrutiny, these fishbowls, there's political demands, you have to balance the competing political pressures. And there's legal constraints. You're bound by statutes, regulations, and due process, constitutional law. Bottom line, and I've said this before, the public sector is not profit driven. Success is measured by the public benefit that we provide, not by revenue. And so there are competing standards that exist within this environment: efficiency, equity, and responsiveness. The scope of authority is different in a public sector organization rather than a private sector organization. In the public sector, there's limited authority. You can only do what the law permits. Uh, there is oversight from legislative bodies, committees, judicial oversight, and the public. And managers must actually persuade their civil servant, their civil employees, rather than just command. City manager wants to implement a new program. They need council approval. There has to be public hearings, and they have to get money for it through a budget authorization process. Unlike just a private sector CEO saying, let's do this. It doesn't happen that way. Policy execution versus policy making. Policy execution is just another word for implementation. This is translating public policy into action by expanding opportunities for services and protections, regulating behavior, redistributing resources, and protecting the public safety. A couple examples here from public works and from corrections. In public works example, the policy is Complete the Streets initiative to make roads safer for pedestrians and cyclists. Right, that's what the policy says. Actually executing that, implementing it, means redesigning intersections, retraining engineering staff, updating design standards, coordinating with transit and neighborhood groups. That's the first part of it. The next part is actually doing the work, building the roads, redoing the intersections, etc. Policy making. Often occurs in a couple stages: policy formulation, identifying the problems and coming up with solutions. The public administrator is going to provide technical expertise to the elected officials who are doing that, approving that particular policy. And implementation is taking those broad policy goals, like a new streets program, and turning it into specific actions. Another example is body-worn cameras. Formulation stage, the police administrators advise the council on the costs, the benefits, and privacy concern. And the implementation stage, administrators decide when to activate, when to start using them, how they're going to store data, and how the disciplinary procedures are going to occur for non-compliance or miscompliance or malcompliance. Administrative responsibility. So public administrators are responsible for effective and efficient policy implementation. It's complex. We've already talked about a number of different types of accountability. Here we have statutes and regulations, we have legislative oversight, we have budgetary oversight, and judicial review. Administrative responsibility often leads to these kind of competing loyalties. We introduced this concept earlier too. There's legal authorities, there's the mission, the organizational priorities, there's professional standards, and there's also, of course, the public interest. Accountability is key when it comes to this kind of notion of what is PA. It's an obligation to explain and justify actions to a higher authority. Some of these we can think about external controls, the rules, the procedures, the red tape. And some of these we often look to internal controls, our professional training, like exactly what you're doing here in this class right now. But that also requires trust on the part of a manager and on the part of the public that the internal control will actually operate in a desired fashion when the public administrator goes to implement a public policy. A couple examples of accountability in action, one for police and courts and one for school districts. Let's do the latter. State testing requirements, school board oversight, parent complaints, media coverage are the external accountability in action. The internal accountability is the principal evaluations, the teacher peer review, and the standards of curriculum. The tension lies between which approach works best. Do we rely on only external controls, this kind of the democratic overhead democracy sense of top-down accountability, or do we rely on internal accountability, right? The standards, the training, the thing that you learn on the job in your professional development training. Often it's a mix of both, and often it may depend upon the political environment in which the agency is operating and the particularities of the public administrator or the manager or supervisor. Our politics is Greek, but our administration is Roman. What does that mean for public administration? We can get to this in theory and practice. Public administration is both theoretical and practical. It's bound by time, by place, by culture, and by context. We often say public administration is contextual. How do we advance this field with limited generalizations? We need universal principles and contextual understanding. Some things are universal. Selection, like who we're going to hire, motivation, control, coordination, budgeting, accounting, management functions. We think there's not one best way to organize and manage, right? Even though these are universal principles. The theoretical side of things, the theorists inform practitioners with research, with frameworks, with thinking about how to implement things from a theoretical standpoint of view, and the practitioners inform the theorists with their real-world insights. And together, they advance the field. One of our top journals in the field is Public Administration Review, and that's where theorists and practitioners engage in a dialogue. Our conferences are this way too. It is both a practiced discipline and a theoretical discipline. So the review of this, PA studies how organizations function and how they're managed. They're different from private administration in a number of different ways. This involves both policy execution and policy making. There's a balancing of competing responsibilities and loyalties. Accountability is mixed. And theory and practice both help to work together to serve the public interest. Okay, that's it for this one. We'll see you at the next time.